What happens when you mix snake oil with day-old whiskey? The result will shock you, but it just might save your life if you're living in the dusty plains of the Wild West. Now, before you dismiss this as sheer fantasy, consider what it would be like to wake up in a ramshackle saloon, your breath thick with the stench of last night's revelry, and realize you have no soap, no fresh water, and absolutely zero shame. Would you reach for anything you could find, even if it belonged in a snake oil bottle? Of course you would, because in the Wild West, survival often trumped dignity. And that's just the start of the story. So brace yourself for more jaw-dropping tales of how folks kept themselves clean in a land where grit was more common than a kind word, and filth was worn like a badge of honor. Imagine a long, lonesome desert road, where your wagon wheels creak and the scorching sun bakes every pore of your skin. You're covered in dust, sweat, and who knows what else. Would you dare to strip down in the middle of that desert for a quick rinse? With bandits around every corner, not to mention venomous creatures lurking under every rock, the very idea of taking a midday bath might sound as absurd as cleaning your teeth with a loaded pistol. But that's exactly what some frontier folk did. Well, not with loaded pistols, we'll get to those soon enough, but with the next best thing: horse troughs. Yes, horse troughs. Those long wooden tubs meant for livestock serve as a makeshift bathtub for more than one dusty traveler. Is that giving you the shivers already? You bet it does, because that water often doubled as the place where horses spat, drooled, and occasionally did something even more revolting. Have you ever wondered how the wild cowboys washed their undergarments when soap was considered a luxury item more precious than gold? The answer might disturb you, but it involved burying them in a shallow pit overnight. Sounds odd? Indeed. But rumor has it that the combination of moonlight, soil minerals, and that infamous frontier dryness somehow cleansed them of all filth. People would dig up their garments the next morning, shake off the dust, and wear them again as though they'd just been laundered in a fancy city washhouse. Crazy, right? But there's more. Some folks swore by donkey urine as an extra cleansing agent, believing its strong ammonia content would kill any bacteria lurking in the cloth. Could you stomach the idea of walking around with donkey urine remnants in your drawers all day? Well, in the Wild West, better safe than sorry took on a whole new meaning. And what about dental hygiene in a place where toothbrushes were scarce, toothpaste was practically non-existent, and sugar-laden whiskey was consumed like water? Brace yourself for another shock. The old pioneers reportedly used everything from charcoal to gunpowder to leftover coffee grounds to scrub their teeth. They'd grind these materials into a fine powder and rub them across their enamel, hoping to scrub away the rot. Picture a cowboy's grin, dark bits of charcoal or gunpowder stuck between his teeth as he cackles at the table. Does that make you think twice about smiling back? It should. But wait, it gets worse. Some saloons were said to offer a tooth shine service. A traveling peddler would coat a customer's teeth in a secret mixture of lard, pig bristles, and a dash of homemade whiskey to kill germs. Does that send a shiver down your spine? It ought to, because not only was it unregulated, but the bristles themselves were rumored to be plucked from filthy barnyard hogs who hadn't seen water in weeks. Now, if you think that's the end of the story for mouth maintenance, you'd be wrong. Picture a lovely frontier lady, hair piled high with pinned-up curls, spitting tobacco juice into a battered tin cup. Why? Because chewing tobacco wasn't just a men's pastime. It was a widely accepted, if not beloved, form of breath freshener for women who despised the smell of rotting teeth. They believed the potent flavor of tobacco could mask the stench of an unbrushed mouth. But at what cost? Gums bled, teeth fell out prematurely, and still they would claim it was better than smelling like last night's whiskey fuel fiasco. Would you resort to such measures if the alternative was being the social pariah with a mouthful of blackened stumps? That's exactly the predicament they faced. And yet, with no immediate alternatives, they chewed, spat, and carried on. Let's not forget the bathing conundrum. How often did these dusty souls actually bathe? It's said that some frontier towns boasted a single bathhouse, which might be an overpriced, ramshackle shed with a tub that was rarely drained. Locals would pay a hefty sum in silver coins to soak in the communal bathwater, a swampy mixture left behind by the previous occupant. Can you imagine that? Settling into lukewarm water tinged with dirt, sweat, and who knows what else from your neighbor who just stepped out. Would you hold your breath and convince yourself that at least some of the grime was washing off? Or would you forego bathing altogether and simply rely on strong perfume made from skunk oil to mask your body odor? Yes, there was talk that some cunning traders bottled the pungent secretions of skunks, diluted them with lavender, and sold them as wilderness musk. If that doesn't make your stomach churn, I don't know what will. But hold on, we can't talk about bathing without addressing hair care. Can we? You might have heard of the old snake oil cures for balding, but have you heard about brushing your locks with a coyote's tail? According to some stories, certain frontier women would scavenge freshly killed coyotes, slice off the tail, and use it as a crude brush to detangle their hair. Nauseating? Absolutely. But rumored to leave hair looking lustrous and thick, or so they claimed. And if you're wondering how they dealt with scalp itch when lice and fleas ran rampant, you're in for another jolting revelation. Some brave souls would rub a mixture of chili pepper and rancid bear fat onto their scalps, believing it would burn the insects away. Would you try it? Probably not. But in a land without anti-lice shampoos, desperation led people to do some appalling things. Now, let's journey into the realm of intimate hygiene. Yes, we're going there. In the hush-hush corners of the frontier, where outhouses were a breeding ground for flies and disease, people got downright inventive. Some families, strapped for resources, opted to use dried corn husks as toilet paper. Is that shocking enough? Wait until you hear the rumor that wealthier ranchers might reuse pages from old newspapers or even jam them together with pine sap to create a rudimentary, sticky form of wet wipes. The smell of pine might seem refreshing, but can you imagine explaining sap stains on your undergarments? Such sticky situations could make for some lively gossip in the general store checkout line. Are you trembling yet? Because there's more. Let's say you have a wound, perhaps a bullet graze or a knife cut from a brawl at the local saloon. Do you sterilize it with alcohol, wrap it in a clean bandage, and hope for the best? Well, that's the ideal scenario. But in many places, folks had to get really crafty. Some used spider webs mixed with cactus pulp as a makeshift bandage, claiming the sticky webbing helped close the wound while the cactus pulp purified it. Is this scientifically accurate? Likely not in the slightest. But we're talking about the Wild West, where a whisper of a cure was enough to make you try anything. And if the spiderweb cactus concoction didn't work, rumor has it that donkey saliva was sometimes applied to particularly stubborn wounds. Supposedly, donkey saliva contained potent enzymes. At least, that's what the old wives' tales said. Do you feel queasy thinking about slapping donkey spit on an open sore? Rest assured, it's probably a terrible idea, but survival makes people do all sorts of weird things. Here's a question for you. How did folks deal with body odor when soaps, deodorants, and baths were few and far between? The answer might blow your mind. Some men, especially those frequenting rowdy saloons, would rub gunpowder under their armpits. Yes, gunpowder. The rationale? The strong sulfuric smell could mask body odor, and they believed it gave them a macho aura. But imagine getting too close to a campfire. One stray spark, and you've got an armpit explosion waiting to happen. It's said that a few unlucky souls discovered this the hard way, turning them into walking cautionary tales. Yet somehow, the allure of smelling like something other than rotting flesh was worth the risk for some brazen cowboys. Finally, can we talk about grooming habits for women? Makeup existed, but it was usually pricey, or it contained arsenic and other poisons. So what did the frontier ladies do if they wanted to lighten their complexion? Some might rub plaster dust on their faces, creating a ghostly pale look that was in vogue at the time. But plaster dust can cause respiratory problems when inhaled regularly. Did that stop them? Of course not. And for that rosy glow, they'd pinch their cheeks until they turned red, or sometimes slap them lightly to get the blood flowing. Or so the rumors go. Today, we might shake our heads, but they saw it as a harmless little beauty trick, a small price to pay for feeling like a proper lady in a land ruled by grit and grime. So, after hearing all these shocking, unsettling, and downright nauseating tales, you might be asking, did any of it actually keep people clean